They're the ones who raise the bar. The ones dedicated to providing care in the most demanding of circumstances. The ones that understand the healing benefits of kindness and compassion. They're the people of Sarah Bush Lincoln, and they set the bar high. Sarah Bush Lincoln, trusted, compassionate care right here close to home.
For over 50 years, Horizon Health has been keeping you and your family healthy. And although some things have changed, Horizon Health's commitment to meet the ever-changing needs of our community has remained the same. Horizon Health, 50 years strong.
Carl is redefining healthcare around you, innovating new solutions and offering all levels of care when and where you need it. Investing in technology and research to optimize healthcare, Carl, with Health Alliance, is always at the forefront to help you thrive.
Thank you for tuning in for the start of season 14 of Being Well. I'm your host, Lacey Spence, and today we are joined by a new guest to the show. We have Dr. Angela Azor.
Yes, that's right.
HSHS Medical Group in Mattoon. How are you?
I'm lovely, thank you. Excited for summer.
Yes. We are taping this in May of 2021, so things are bound to change, but this is what we are talking about today is normal aging. Yeah. But before we dive into our topic, I'd love to get to know a little bit more about you. So how did you get into practice to be a doctor?
Actually, growing up in Haiti, I used to see the Doctors Without Borders providing care, and kind of like my first love of medicine started there. And I also have my aunt who is a pediatrician, so she was my doctor, so I also had that growing up like as aspiration. And kind of really, really loving science and really loving applied science. Like, what does that mean, you know, when we do this research, and what does that mean for someone else and helping people? So, and then when I got further into my studies, I realized I actually didn't want to specialize because I wanted to take care of the whole family. I want to take in the full breadth of medicine. So that's how I ended up in family medicine, because it kind of allows me to marry all of those interests and all of those things.
Well, I can definitely see that you've got a heart to care for people, because as you saw other people being cared for, and you said, I don't want to limit myself. Right. I want to care for the whole lot of them.
Right.
So how did you end up in this area?
Actually, I have my mom who doesn't live too far away. She lives up in Naperville. So, and then this opportunity came up, and I was like, okay, this is a good opportunity. So our whole family moved.
And what's it like to be giving care to people in such a rural area?
You know, once again, coming from Haiti and seeing like rural Haiti, it's not that rural. It's not that rural. But you're right. I did start my practice in the Northeast, which is like 30 minutes or so outside of New York City. Mm-hmm. And so this is a change in terms of my practice. But what I enjoy about it is that I get to expand the scope of my practice. I get to see more. I get to, I actually get to practice much closer to what I had seen growing up in Haiti, which is really the full breadth of family medicine. So that part of it is really attractive to me. And quite frankly, my husband and I, we enjoy the rural areas. We enjoy the clean air. We like green spaces and open spaces. So we've been enjoying it.
And I'm sure we gave you a pretty good taste of winter as well.
That part.
I could do without that.
That part, yeah.
So today's topic, normal aging. How did you kind of come about with wanting to talk about this?
You know, the reason is because a lot of my practice happens to be the elderly. And so because of that, I found myself being attracted and researching more into it, and also finding and helping people to age gracefully, right? Because we all have to age. So, so one of the things is to, well, what should I expect? Because we're all going to go through this process one way or the other. So whether you're 10 or you're 30 or you're 80, you're constantly aging. And so when you get to a certain age, what does that mean? What does that look like? What does it mean to age successfully? Sure. So it actually came from such a big part of my practice being elderly patients.
Definitely. So I think probably one of the biggest things that people would notice as we're aging would be our skin. You know, covers our whole body. It's the first thing you see. So what does normal aging in skin look like?
Okay, so one of the first things I would say as you age, you should definitely use sunscreen, right? Because one of the things you want to prevent is photoaging, which is the damage that is done to your skin by the UV rays. And so that's one of the things that you want to do. Because if you don't do that, unfortunately, there are two parts. Photoaging is one of the things that's somewhat preventable. What is not very preventable is the physiological aging of skin. What does that mean? We have little connective parts in our skin that kind of hold things together and hold things tight, if you will. As we age, those break down. When they start to break down, the skin becomes a little looser. Unfortunately, the collagen deposit in the skin also, the production decreases significantly, as much as like 50%. And so you want to be able to try your best to decelerate that process. However, it is a part of your normal aging. Furthermore, genetics seem to have something to do with it, like how quickly you go through that. There seems to be a genetic component to that as well. So when you have all those tightening of the skin breaking down, as well as like the major molecules like collagen responsible for kind of holding things nice and plump and tight breaking down, you end up with not only looser skin, but you also end up with unfortunate wrinkles. And another part is, as you age, it's not that you shouldn't try to lose weight. However, the fat that is underneath your skin that makes like the babies and looks so plump and cute and beautiful, that layer thins out. So as it thins out, that also means more sagging and more wrinkles. However, great news, it seems like retinoic acid products can actually slow down and even reverse that process. So all those sort of anti-aging, as long as it does have some retinoic acid, it seems to have some promising results. So you can, to some degree, slow down aging. So if you're doing that, usually you use that at night, and then during the day, you're having sunscreen, you can really, really slow down the damage to your skin as you age.
And so I'm not to 30 yet, but I'm guilty of doing in the mirror a little one of these, or, you know, looking at the smile lines, which again, it's the memories you carry. That's what matters.
Correct.
But at what age should you start trying to use, I mean, sunscreen, I assume all the time, but
Correct.
the
retinoic acid.
That's what I'm looking for.
So there's all kinds of them. Trans-retinoic acid being, seeming to have the most promise in research. So anytime, it seems like 30 years old or so,
my clock's ticking, okay.
You can technically start using them early. I don't know if they have the same effect because you're not quite at the point where you're having that kind of loosening and damage and thinning of your subcutaneous fat yet. However, around 30 to the mid-30s seems to be the age where you really want to start being really serious about your skin protection.
Sure, and so you were also mentioning collagen.
Yes.
I know it's kind of maybe a fad right now to be taking extra collagen.
Right.
Is it just a fad? Is there truth to it?
There doesn't seem to be in that way.
Okay.
So I would say that if anything, the most researched and sort of the most solid results seem to be with the retinoic acids.
And then I know we're just kind of talking about the appearance of that, but it's also important, obviously, to use the sunscreen to prevent skin cancer.
Absolutely, for sure. Very important. Although we're talking about the elderly, unfortunately, a lot of the damage that may lead to skin cancer later in life happens in childhood. Yes.
Slather up those kiddos.
and earlier in life. So, not that it cannot happen while you're older because you're more susceptible. However, it is very important throughout your life, even on cloudy days, to be really, really serious about your sun-exposed areas and use sunscreen.
Just trying to hide here as I'm like rocking a bit of a sunburn myself. So what about hair when hair starts to turn white or you lose hair as you get older?
Right. So, just like a lot of other cells in the body, in your hair follicles, you have pigment cells. They're called melanocytes. So they're responsible, depending on how many pigment cells you have and how much melanin they're expressing, you have different colors of hair naturally, right? And so what happens is, unfortunately, as you get older, some of those pigment cells do die. And it's a better way to say hair growing gray rather than turning gray, because the hair has its color as it leaves the root, right? As it leaves the follicle, the color is already there, or there's a lack of color. And so when the pigment cells die, then there's no pigment in the follicle, so the hair starts to grow out pigmentless. So depending on how pigmentless it is, we can have all sorts of, it can start a little gray, and then it moves on until it's, white or silver. So it's more like pigmentless hair than truly like gray or white hair. It just doesn't have any pigment any longer.
And I'm sure there's no way I can prevent that, yes?
No, it doesn't. There doesn't seem to be a way. However, it is, once again, genetics. Some people start graying in their 30s, and some people, well in their 40s. That's when they will see their first little, gray hair coming in.
It's that stress factor, right?
It is worth mentioning. So what happens with stress is it can cause you to have like an episode where you really start to increase the rate at which you lose hair. We lose hair and we regenerate anyway. That's part of the hair cycle. When you're overly stressed, what can happen is you shed more. But as you're shedding more, that's a response to the body to regenerate hair more and faster. So the hair is being replaced, up to a certain age. However, what happens is if you are in your 30s or 40s, let's say you were close to the age where some of those pigment cells were dying anyway, what you end up seeing is the new growth is now more gray and more white. So you were going to have those hairs anyway. You've just accelerated the process of the regrowth, and the regrowth happens to be, again, pigmentless growth. So it's indirect, the way that stress causes a hair to turn gray. But yeah, so if you're just a young person, what you just might see is, oh my God, my clumps of hair are just coming out in clumps. However, the regrowth, if you're a young person like in their 20s, likely will not be gray.
That's a relief. So what about joint pain, something that you can't usually see, but I know it's something that you really feel as you get older? Why does that come into play?
Right. So as we get older, we all have cartilage in between in our joints, right? It's like a cushioning. We also have little sacks of like gel-like, water-like cushion in a lot of our joints, especially the weight-bearing joints. As we age, a couple of things happen. So sometimes you can have micro injuries throughout your life, and it's like, oh, I think I hurt my knee, but after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months, it kind of goes away. However, there may be some damage there, right? And then as you age, that cartilage starts to thin. And so what you start having is something that was working really well, like if I can take, for example, the hip joint, which is a ball and socket, and it was really well lubricated. It had a really nice cartilage. Now that cartilage starts to be gritty. It's not as well lubricated. It starts to be thin, and that registers in the body as joint pain. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of what happens. So old injuries kind of going in, as well as wear and tear and thinning of cartilage, as well as just because your muscles unfortunately weakened and you have a loss of muscle as you age, they're responsible for holding the joints and strengthening of the joints. However, if you're having a little bit weaker muscles, the joint itself becomes weaker and kind of takes on more of a brunt that it's not supposed to, and you get a little bit of misalignment, and that also leads to, as you age, joint pains. So what can we do? We want to age gracefully. Absolutely, absolutely, as much as possible, exercising. That includes weight-bearing exercising, such as walking, as well as strengthening exercises as much as possible. It's been shown to really improve balance, really improve joint pain, really improve and decrease kind of the muscle loss that happens with age. So there's some things that you can do. And if you can, as much as possible, lose some weight, especially that's going to be good for your weight-bearing joints, because the more weight you put on the joints, the more you can accelerate the wear and tear.
And you're not saying just dive right in and you've got to do all these reps or all this heavy weight.
Correct.
Ease into that so
Correct.
you don't risk injuring yourself further.
Correct.
And a lot of this would also go for, I assume, the bones as well as you get older? Kind of this hard impact and things like that?
Yes. So as you get older, the bones also thin out. And one of the things that you can do by doing weight-bearing exercises, it's a good stress for the bone. And what does that mean? That means that the bone is going to stay thicker longer because it has to support a good muscle mass. So good muscle mass usually leads to better bone health. But naturally, we do lose some bone density, all of us do, as we age. What's important and why osteoporosis comes into play is how quickly, compared to someone who is your sex and your age, how quickly are you losing that bone mass, and how closely are you at risk for having a fracture or not. And we know for a fact that having really good nutrition, stopping smoking, avoiding long-term steroids if you can, seem to be protective. Avoiding alcohol, excessive alcohol intake, seem to lead to better bone health. It's also important when it comes to bone health as you age to understand that vitamin D is not as well absorbed in the gut, which is one of the reasons it's important to really have a good calcium as well as good vitamin D in your diet in order for your bone to stay as healthy as possible.
I was going to ask, so it's a little too late for the gut milk or anything like that? Or, because I feel like I had read somewhere, it's like you can only deposit into your like bone density bank, if you will, until a certain age, a certain point. Is that right?
That's somewhat correct, yeah.
I'm not the doctor here, you are. That's why I'm asking you the questions. So another thing I noticed, and I've noticed it with my parents for sure, is at the younger age, you can eat all the spicy foods you want. And as you age, the tolerance for it is just gone. So what happens with that?
Okay, so a few things. Believe it or not, in terms of a lot of the systems in our body, the GI system is somewhat pretty preserved, but there are a few changes that do happen. One of them is the acid in your stomach tends to be decreased. Sort of in the US, for instance, though, we tend to think that that is also related to medications. So some of the medication decrease the acid production in your stomach. And you kind of need that in order to digest properly. As you age, your stomach's ability to digest and sort of move in a coherent fashion decreases slightly, not significantly, slightly, but that's, again, another multifactorial added factor, right? And as well as one of the things that sort of prevent acid reflux is there's a sphincter that protects your esophagus, which is the tube from your mouth to your stomach. And at the juncture of that esophagus and your stomach down below, you have a nice little sphincter that's really nicely toned and closes very well. It knows when to open and to close, depending on, if you're eating or swallowing or not. As you age, that sphincter is a little bit looser. So that means not only you're not moving the content of your stomach as much, you're not digesting as well, you're also having that little valve that's supposed to keep things that are down and things that are in the esophagus up. It kind of is looser. That means that acid content from the stomach
can sneak out. I gotcha.
And then you get heartburn, and then you get, acid reflux. And what's more, and what's interesting about that is that compared to younger people who have acid reflux, older people don't feel it as much in terms of the damage that we can see. So if we're able to go in and kind of put a camera down for an older person compared to a younger person, in terms of the tissue damage that we see with the acid, the tissues being exposed to the acid, an older person will have much more damage compared to a younger person, you know, who may be more symptomatic, who may say, oh no, this acid reflux is really, so again, has to do with a lot of sensory nerve not functioning as well as you get older.
And when you say some medicines can cause it, what kind of medicines are we talking about?
A lot of older people are already on, for a long time, antacids. So you see a lot of people on omeprazole, Pepcid, and Nexium. So it works by reducing the acid in your stomach. So although it may help you feel better, it does have some of those effects where it reduces the acid in your stomach and it reduces the absorption of certain foods, such as like iron and things.
And so that prevents you from also being able to absorb?
Correct, certain
stuff?
things,
Okay.
correct, right. It does prevent you from being able to absorb certain foods and certain nutrients that require an acidic environment, yes.
And so as we kind of move back up towards the hair where you're hiding your brain, I know I'm guilty of it. A lot of people forget things.
Yes.
I assume that happens more as you get older, and
Yes.
when does it become worrisome?
Good. So there's, the good thing is, and this is important, you can form sort of neuronal synapses, if you will, up until very, very, very old. It's not, meaning you don't stop learning. Your brain doesn't stop.
Okay, layman's
right.
terms. You never stop learning.
You don't stop learning. You still have some ability to learn, right? What happens is you are not as efficient at it. The way that you go about forming memories and kind of like the way those synapses kind of interconnect is not as efficient. So that translates to more processing time. It takes you more time to just do things that you used to be able to do. That's a normal part of aging. It's visual aspects of memory and visual spatial recognition, geographical location, familiar faces, familiar things that are overlearned throughout life are very well preserved. For instance, you're not gonna forget how to use a hammer, right? Mm-hmm. You're likely not going to forget your child's name. What you might forget is, oh, I used to be able to do arithmetic, like no problem. And then now it's like, I have to think about that. Let me
I blame calculators.
You know, 2-step, 3-step processing just become a little slower. When it starts to become abnormal is when all those things that are supposed to have been overlearned or things that have to do with spatial relationships become impaired. That's a big red flag. For instance, I've gone to this barber shop my whole life and now I'm getting lost, right? Mm-hmm. I can't find my way home, or I cannot remember my neighbor's name, and this has been your neighbor for like 40 years.
Yeah.
So those kind of things are sort of the red flags of sort of abnormal memory deficits versus I forgot where I put my keys, or it's taking me a little bit longer to process and balance my checkbook. That's okay. That's a normal part of aging.
So once you hit that point where, oh my goodness, I cannot remember my neighbor's name.
Right.
What are my next steps?
Your next steps is to get as much support as possible, hopefully from family, right? So you kind of want to cue your family and be open and honest with your family about what's going on, and they can sort of help you, because the next step after that, after kind of your family starts to notice with you, you know, what are some of the patterns, what are some of the worrisome changes, they can take you to your doctor. And once they take you to your doctor, the family or the loved ones play a very, very big role in helping us to pinpoint and document what is normal versus what is abnormal for you. So it's very important to talk to your doctor, or if you notice, oftentimes the person doesn't notice. And the family, once again, or people who are around, friends, they're the ones who notice and can come to us and say, hey, my father, is really sharp, or my mother was really sharp, and now I'm noticing a few changes. Mm-hmm. And although we can't seem to reverse some of those dementia memory issues, there are medications that really do help to slow down, to delay the progression.
Which is, again, why it's so important to actually say something to your physician, to your loved ones.
Yes.
Because I get it can be something fearful.
Absolutely.
You might worry about losing your independence, but at the
Yes.
same time,
Yes.
if you don't take these steps,
Yes.
then you can't work toward, salvaging what you do have.
Correct. And oftentimes, the good news about that, it's slowly progressive for the most part. I mean, there are some aggressive presentations of dementia, but most of the time it's slowly progressive. And so we're starting to see that if we're able to intervene earlier and do things earlier, it does help. Also, writing things down and having familiar places, familiar faces seem to really, really help the elderly with sort of memory cues and such.
Like having a routine.
Having a routine, yeah. And being in familiar environments, because remember we mentioned like the spatial relationship being something that's really well preserved.
And so we're in our last minute here, but quickly, is there anything that's not a normal part of aging? Like, when should you see your doctor?
The memory one is a big one. If you have joint pains that are really excruciating all the time, that's not normal. If you just because you're getting older, just depression, that's a big one. If you're feeling down and depressed, you can just be down and depressed, and not just because you're getting older. So it's important. That's an important part of aging that you can talk to your doctor. And most importantly, if you're not sure. Right? You're like, well, I'm not sure. Is it normal aging or not? That's a discussion you can have with your doctor, and we can reassure you, and we can help you to go to go through a process of successful aging, which is what we aim for.
Awesome. Well, I know I'd feel comfortable coming to you, Dr. Angel. Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Being Well. We'll see you next time.
Carl is redefining healthcare around you, innovating new solutions and offering all levels of care when and where you need it. Investing in technology and research to optimize healthcare, Carl, with Health Alliance, is always at the forefront to help you thrive.
For over 50 years, Horizon Health has been keeping you and your family healthy. And although some things have changed, Horizon Health's commitment to meet the ever-changing needs of our community has remained the same. Horizon Health, 50 years strong.
They're the ones who raise the bar. The ones dedicated to providing care in the most demanding of circumstances. The ones that understand the healing benefits of kindness and compassion. They're the people of Sarah Bush Lincoln, and they set the bar high. Sarah Bush Lincoln, trusted, compassionate care right here close to home.